Greetings and welcome to English 110, Literature and Ideas. My name is Isaac Bell. I'm going to be your instructor for the 6 weeks course. Here's a picture of me if you ever catch me around Kansas City or Lawrence, which is where I live. A few of you I know have been in a class with me before. This is going to be somewhat similar in some of the assignments, but obviously we're covering some radically different ground. So, we're going to get right to it. Hopefully, you have been looking at the syllabus. There's a lot to read in this course because, of course, it's about literature, and that may be a challenge you're not expecting for yourself. So, my advice is I will always have the next week's shells up early. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping to have all of the shells finished in the next week or two so you can see them all in advance and see your reading assignments early so you can get started on them and start working through them even before the week that they're due if you can. You also see that we have a fair amount of writing, and because of what we're using now, we're using not an English, not a Pearson 360, or as they put it, a Baker 360, but we're using what's called a Pearson Revel book, which is all online. So there's going to be some readings and things there that may be you'll not necessarily used to reading them online. You'll have to access it through a browser. And then you also have quizzes at the end of some of the chapters, and those quizzes are going to be part of your grade. So there's going to be a lot of things to keep track of. So I will be doing a video at the beginning of every week, as well as I'm going to put this in various areas so you can pay attention to. And obviously, the syllabus will let you know in advance what you want to do. Gives you the grading scale, all of our readings, points, estimated time on task. These are just estimates. You may go much faster or maybe a little bit slower. So count for how long it takes you to do things. As far as some of these things, such as late work, it says 5% total points per day. I usually just go a couple points per day unless it's a couple weeks late. And then, unless you give me some indication that you're going to turn it in, I'm just going to assume it's not going to come in. So, go through all of that. That's under the syllabus link. This is where I will post general course announcements. If you have specific questions for me that you think the entire class can benefit from, here's a form for that. The best way to get a hold of me is through email. I used to try to have office hours, but nobody would ever show up except for at random times in the middle of the week. So if you want to talk to me through a chat tool, I can certainly create one, but just email me and schedule time, and we'll make that work. Otherwise, a question here should be seen by everybody, and everybody can participate in that question. This is the link for this page here. You'll see in here a link to what's called Revel. There's also some student help and support. So if you're having trouble accessing Revel, I would advise you to check as soon as you can and make certain you have access. You may need to click on you enter this code to get access, but it should be right there. And of course, now I notice a typo on this page. That's how that always goes. So here's what the Revel page looks like. This is the student view. You'll be clicking on these, so you'll see this is supposedly due on February 24th, which is the Monday. What that means is it's due midnight of this Sunday, so midnight February 23rd. And what you're supposed to do is click on these and go through the chapters. Now, some of the chapters are fairly short, and of course it takes a moment to load. Remember, by the way, that you'll want a modern browser. It prefers Safari or Chrome, or I haven't checked it on Internet Edge, Microsoft Edge. It isn't super happy with Firefox. You can force it to use Firefox. I've noticed no problems with it, but just be aware of that. And so you'll go through there. There's some to be quite honest, slightly dry videos about what's going on in the chapter here. And then you'll go through the book and look at what it's saying about these things. I'm going to give you, in areas under each one, my thoughts about these. And so let me see where I put the thoughts this time. So here's my thoughts. And so this is me trying to add some more input into what the book is saying. And one of the reasons I do that is because The book has a very specific focus. Among other things, it's trying to introduce these concepts, give you basic ideas, and they have a certain focus on things, especially here, what the difference is between quote unquote literary fiction and other types of fiction. I don't necessarily agree with that point of view all the time, and as the instructor, I want to give you different points of view. So, this is talking about what I see as literature. You can easily believe what you want, that literature is what is worth studying or thinking about more deeply. I take a pretty holistic view. If it's a story we've told as humans, then it is probably worth studying, even if it's really shallow. Yes, that includes something as shallow as Cat in the Hat. But the reason I believe so strongly in that, and as I say here in the thoughts, and you can read it more in depth on your own, is that human beings, as far as I can tell, are unique mostly because we tell stories. And telling a story is something that we do not observe any other animal do. They can sometimes transfer information, simple alerts or here's how to do a thing. They can sometimes use tools. They sometimes have rudimentary language and social structures. But what we do that makes us different is we tell stories. We share who we are, and what we've learned as a species through stories, and those stories help us as individuals gain access to the greater knowledge that all humans have put together. And also, they're fun ways to pass the time. So, all of that is true at the same time. One thing you'll learn from me is I think many things, simplicity is not the right way to think about things. Anything can be as complex as you pay attention to it. So it's about how much effort you want to put into finding out what's going on. I do think the book is pretty well written in terms of explaining concepts. If you struggle to understand one, feel free to ask it, or that is why we have a discussion forum. So real quick, you'll notice that the weeks will have links. So introduction, here's the things that I would like you to pay attention to early on in the week. Then here, instructions, my thoughts. So I actually prefer to read the chapter and then look at the thoughts and maybe take another look at it. One thing I will highly advise you do with anything you read or write or pay attention to more deeply than the surface level is you'll need to get used to looking at it more than once. I have had more than one discussion with students in various classes that, well, I don't have time for that. It takes so long to go through it. That's all true. That's the difference between somebody who critically thinks about things or thinks deeply about things and somebody who doesn't. Is, are you willing to put in the time to consider stuff? You don't have to go over 3, 4, 5 times, but a couple of times or even 3 times, asking more and deeper questions each time helps. So that's one of the things that you'll be advised to do here. So some of these chapters are fairly long. This one is fairly long. You'll have a 10 question quiz at the end of most of these. At least one of the quizzes is only 5 questions long. Each question is worth 2 points. So you get full points if you answer the question correctly the first time. You get 1 point if you answer correctly the second time, 0 points if you can't answer it in 2 chances. My advice is to take notes while you read the chapter and to so that you don't have to take these questions multiple times. All right, so that's the basics of the book. I also have various assignments. One of the things to pay attention to when you're writing is the Purdue Online Writing Lab. We use the MLA format because it's an English class. So one of the links in the first part of the course here will take you to this. Refer to this as much as you can. Among other things, refer to the general guidelines of what a paper should look like. And especially for the formatting of the first page, this will show you. The basics are, of course, it's Times New Roman 12-point font, double spaced, take out the extra padding between paragraphs, and try and make certain that your margins are 1 inch, half-inch margins, all that sort of stuff. So it tells you here what it should look like. The other thing is citations. Go through the basic citations. Here's how you build a basic citation, what it looks like. So that's the general format, the basic citation of what a citation will look like at the end of your works cited page. And then, of course, your in-text citations, again, the basics. So this is what an in-text citation is meant to do. It's meant to make it so I can easily look at what you're writing, glance at it, and know where in your works cited page this information is. So if you've given me the information of who the author is here and the page here, if I'm looking at your works cited page, all I'm looking for is Wordsworth. That should be the very first thing I should see on the left, as you see here. And so I can look at it and go, oh, that's the Wordsworth citation. Or you put in here and then again Wordsworth first, the page afterwards, or in here. So again, what this means is if you give me the name of the author, or if there's multiple things by that author, give me the name of the author or the name of the book, which would also be here, I can find very quickly what I'm looking for and don't need all of this plus this. But we can talk about that more in depth later. And this, of course, gives you, if you're trying to figure out how to cite electronic works like something you found online, this can give you examples of that. So it's a very useful resource. I always bookmark it and just refer to it everything I write. So I've shown you that. So after all of that, um, class introductions. This is one of the first things you should do. Just come in here and talk about who you are. I'm going to post a class introduction myself tomorrow, give you a little idea of who I am and what my teaching background is. And that's just, if you want to use this space to also say things like this story appeals to me, or this kind of thing appeals to me, go for that. And here's the prompt for you. I also have occasionally a couple of videos from this online YouTube educational course called Crash Course English Literature, another one called Crash Course Drama, and these help convey some basic ideas. Um, the host of the literature course is a guy named John Green, and I'm a big fan of his. But he is kind of talks very quickly and likes to use jump cuts to make his point, so it can be a little hyper energetic. But I think he's very good at breaking down concepts. And this whole course, if you ever have time or you're interested in reading more, talks about a whole bunch of works of literature such as Romeo and Juliet and other great works.
Okay, before we begin our mini-series on reading and writing in English, we're going to discuss how to read and why. So if you watched our series on world history, you'll no doubt remember that writing and the ability to read it are so-called markers of civilization. Now that's a really problematic idea. I mean, for one thing, great stories can have great lives in the oral tradition, like one of my favorite books, Mules and Men by Zora Neale Hurston.
And so that's the style of that. He goes through a lot of ideas, breaks them down pretty quickly and easily. And so I'm a big fan of using those resources when I can. So again, I showed you the week one thoughts I had about all that sort of stuff. And here's a example article of how to do one things you're going to be asked to do for this course, which is talking about the value of annotations. It's going to ask you to sign up. You don't have to. So this is read from the perspective of a teacher explaining why he thinks annotations are useful. I hate doing annotations. You're going to hate doing them too because it slows you down, forces you to look at things multiple times, but they are incredibly useful afterwards. And annotations is just a way of taking notes while you're reading. And so then, of course, you have other ways to do things. Here's another way to get a grade, which is the discussion forum. The point of a discussion forum is not gotcha. I usually give fairly high grades on these because I just want you to use this to have a conversation about things. I have to put points in them so that we can judge that you're doing it, but otherwise, don't worry about it too much. And of course, I give you averages. So if your initial post should be worth about up to 10 points. Most people get 8 or 9. Many people get 10. It's not that hard to do. Excuse me. And many people, then you write responses. You should write a minimum 2 responses. Each response is worth up to 5 points. Most people get 3 or 4 points. But one of the ways to game the system is to respond to lots of things, which gets you up to 5 points for each response. And so you can't, I don't think you can get 20 points. I pay attention to if you've written more than 3 responses, and that's the way you're trying to get your points. But 3 or more responses is the best way to guarantee you're going to get a total of 20 points for each week. And I highly encourage that because that means you're having a conversation with other people. So, And finally, the assignment for this week is to do annotations and responses. So what you're going to do is read the chapter, the last chapter in the set of readings about how to read. It's going to give you advice on annotation. You've seen the article that will show you how to do annotations. And then you're going to come through here and use annotations and use that to write a short response essay. A short response essay can be fairly casual. It doesn't have to be very formal. It doesn't have to use MLA citations, although I prefer if you try to write it in MLA paper format. Just that by that I mean with the header and all that sort of stuff shown on Purdue Online Writing Lab in the general format with this kind of header and stuff. But the whole point is looking at the various readings. So you notice when I was flipping through the first chapter, there are a couple of examples of fables and tales and sort of stuff like that. The second chapter also has readings, and the first 2 weeks of chapters have multiple readings in them. And when you do that, and then of course I have assigned the day after the first week is over, chapter 15. See if I can show you on the assignments. So that's next week. So if you see here, there's a Monday, March 4th. And this is stories for further reading. These are a whole bunch of other stories you can choose from to also examine in here to look at. So this should give you, between all the examples you have from the first 2 weeks of readings, as well as anything in chapter 15, you should find something that you'll be interested enough in to do annotations and notes on. And so it's about 250 to 300 words. That's about a page to page and a half, or a page and a quarter. It's not very long. It's actually probably a little bit short for these kinds of things. And just ask yourself questions and make notes and try to think of the elements that you're being asked to examine in these readings, and where and how this story can be answered that. And the annotation could be fairly simplistic and fairly loose. It can be bullet points. It can be a bunch of questions and answers. It can be a paragraph. What I'm trying to get you to do is to show that you are thinking deeply and asking questions while you're reading. And then second, then you'll use that to become an essay. And that's 500, 750 words. That's 2 or 3 pages roughly. And again, that is it's a fairly basic essay. It's not like a book report, but it has some elements. You tell me what you like, what appeals to you, what doesn't appeal to you, what's working, and you also name the elements from there. So how is the plot working? What are the characters? What else is going on? And by all means, refer to the chapters if you want to read ahead. In chapter 2, you can even talk about setting and theme if you want. But mostly a focus on characters and points of view and the elements inside the story. So that is what that assignment is. So as you can see, there's quite a bit that's going on in this week. But if you feel like it's a little too much, or if you feel like you're not certain you can get it all done in time, let me know. I understand everybody in this class are adults with their own lives, lots of things going on. So just ask me if you can turn something in late. I'm usually pretty flexible about that. The only exception is the week 6 assignments have to be turned in pretty much right away because I have to get grades back in a few days after that. Last thing about that, grades, I usually start grading the Tuesday or Wednesday after everything's done. So you do have a little bit of flexibility there. And I usually grade all the other things like quizzes and discussion forums before I grade the final papers. Okay, if you have any other questions for me or anything you don't understand, let me know. And if not, I will see you later. Bye.